Hey everyone, you're with Matthew and Amy, and you're at the Hub. And we continue to explore how to teach yoga to everyone. We're wanting to reintroduce, I did it in a previous segment, what the idea of bridge poses. And remember, this is all predicated on you starting to know your yoga practice from multiple directions. So you're used to being able to, most of you out there, being able to do all the poses. But the concept of bridging poses is really important because for someone that can't do as many poses that have a piece in many other poses, that are bridges to other poses, are really, really important. Now, this is also really important for our approach that is trying to adapt sensations or experiences and not the outer form of poses. But we're trying to show you how you might start to experience things in your own practice that are going to make you and help you realize what's happening in the experiential parts of the poses so you can pass them on to anybody. All right, so the idea, before we talked about the relationship between Tadasana, which B.K. Iyengar says in every pose, and its relationship to Dandasana, with the special emphasis on what can Dandasana teach you about Tadasana. Instead of thinking about it, so thinking about poses from the ground up to standing, as opposed to standing to sitting down, right? So one of the poses we want to start to explore, one of the bridging poses to a lot of the standing poses. So this means that I want a lot of you to start practicing more and more Supta Padangusthasana, right? Which is, and we'll do it in a second. But first, I want you to just, Amy, will you just stand up for a second? And just take your arms, do Trikonasana, not a big deal. Don't worry about getting in it too well. But just the shape of the pose. So this is the shape of the pose, right? And she's just coming in, and a lot of you, you know this pose. It's one of the tried and true, right? And so this shape, and then she comes back up. And if you want to do the other side quick, you can do it. So she's not imbalanced, right? So the thing about Supta Padangusthasana, and especially Supta Padangusthasana 2, right? So this is the shape of Trikonasana. And remember, we're going to be emphasizing what are the experiences in Trikonasana that you might be able to adapt. Turn your feet straight ahead. So now what we want to explore is actually how Supta Padangusthasana, which you now go down laying flat on the floor. Now I want to point out some things that are different now. Clearly, you're not standing up in the same way, so you're going to grab the belt. You're not standing up, so your balance is not challenged the same way. So there's a tendency sometimes in Supta Padangusthasana for someone who's really flexible to not work the inside and the muscular actions in the pose. That is not what it's for. So think about what B.K. Iyengar is doing when he's introducing a belt. So take your right leg up, put the belt over the foot, right? On the bottom edge, right there. So right away, now if you think about what he's doing here, by introducing this prop, is he's making the floor happen, right? He's giving reference so you can learn how your femur bone is here. And one of the things that's happening in Supta Padangusthasana, which just isn't in Trikonasana, it's in every standing pose, is what is the relationship between your femur bones, between this part of your leg and this leg, and how do you make sure the connection is even deeper? So the relationship between your two legs is really important, and its relationships to your arms. That's why when I'm trying to teach Supta Padangusthasana in a way that teaches standing poses, I want to make sure her arms are straight like this. Now release for a second and put the belt over the heel. Now, you should experience this at home. You should try to do the difference. And this one's going to bring much more grounding, right? But know that it's typically taught up here. One's not right, one's not wrong. Different sensations, different opportunities from reference more directly on the bone for awareness in the down leg, for awareness throughout the whole body. So again, what we're going to want you to do over and over is start to explore the different ways that grounding as a sensation comes through your pose. And then take your leg down. So did you do both legs? You want to do the other leg? Again, so we're starting here with the width on the ball of the foot, which does something different. Now think about this. this would be the front leg in Trikonasana, right? This would be the back leg, although you're on a different plane, right? You're in a straight line here. It's going to get more when you go off to the side. It's going to become more like the shape of Trikonasana on the backside. So if I want to help her feel like it's more like a standing pose, some sort of sandbag or block here is going to like help her feel what the ground would like, and that brings a sense of relief to the strain in her pose, and then release. So go to the first side, take that leg up, grab the belt with both in your right hand, take your left arm out to the side. So now, Trikonasana, remember, I'm interested in the sensations of the pose, and I want you to start practicing sensations in poses. So as she comes off to the side, if you're at home alone, you might put a chair here or something. Instead of going to your full pose, I'm going to hold up her leg a little bit because I want her to have the calming energy of Shavasana, which, by the way, is a bridging pose. It's in every pose, right? I'm taking some of the gravity and the strain so she gets to actually feel where the other awareness goes. Now, when I don't hold up her leg, she has to flex more. I can tell you some of the full-bodied awareness has changed. Remember, you want to teach your students how to feel the poses from inside to out. So I hold up, and when you do this, maybe you put it on a chair, maybe you put a bolster under your leg, you will realize that you have more presence going through your body. You're actually more balanced, which is another one of the sensations. And then come on up, and then release. So one of the things, and take the other leg up. So one of the things that we want to get across is that we want your students, and they won't probably have legs like, legs that go up like this and all this stuff, right? But we want your students to actually start to have the inward experiences, not just the outward experiences, because the muscular action, if I'm doing this pose, my muscular actions don't fire in my legs. So when Amy's having to take her leg off to the side and then go off to the side here, right? So when she's holding there, right, she's having to flex muscles, that's not an experience that I can have because I'm never going to be able to hold up against gravity, right? So I'm more interested in you as an at-home practitioner to start experiencing some relief and let relief teach you where the pose is going, how the pose fills the vessel, how the ankles and the wrists have to connect, how the two femur bones have to connect. And then come on up. So the coordination, and then drop the leg. The coordination between the legs, the way that the awareness is actually enhanced when there's less muscular action. Now, the thing about you practicing Trikonasana when you're in Supta Padangusthasana, think about how there's more Shavasana in the pose because you're not fighting gravity, because your spine is supported. So, and why would Shavasana be in every pose? Well, because there's a dimension of your experience that's less tangible that's moving through the poses. So just have a seat up for a second, Amy. So, because I've never been able to do full Trikonasana without a spinal cord injury, right? How hard is it to translate what you're doing on the ground? And we're going to do the full Trikonasana on the ground here in a second. But translate what you're learning on the floor to when you're standing up.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So when I'm trying to tell you, imagine you're just a student coming into my class, that Supta Padangusthasana on the floor is actually a bridge pose to Trikonasana. And then, but wait, they feel different if you're just doing Trikonasana, right? But like, is it hard to take lessons from the floor up? Like, like that switch, like you can see the poses?
No, I don't think it's hard to take lessons from the floor. I teach that way a lot of the time. I think you actually can get a sensation in the pose when you're doing it on the floor that you can't get when you're standing up because you're fighting gravity. And so I think sometimes, depending on the pose, you can really almost get the essence of the pose and then teach your students to translate that to a gravity, a position where they're having to resist gravity.
So that's part of what I want you to start to get, is that you've got to start learning poses that take more balance and are standing from the floor up too, right? And realize that there's things, and there's things that one of the things you find out on the floor, is that how much you cheat with your hips. Like
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
You end up, there are reasons why Trikonasana is not done. There's a difference between Supine Ustasana and Trikonasana. So go back down to the floor for a second. So I'm going to teach this one more like Trikonasana now than just Supine Ustasana. Take the right leg up. Grab the bell of the hand, take your arm off to the side. So obviously, I'm going to hold up your leg over here because I want you to feel the pose. It's going to have you hold it for a while. So obviously that's the back arm, right? That's the up arm in Trikonasana. That's the back leg, right? This is the front leg in Trikonasana, right? So you can start to learn, especially when you don't have so much struggle in the pose. That's why Bigas Engar introduces the belt, in my opinion. One of the reasons in this is that she's got to stretch out through the heel and the ball of the foot. In other words, she has to touch the ground here still, right? If that was the floor. So she's stretching out the heel and the ball of the foot, but she's moving her femur bone back towards the hip socket. And what you get to start to explore is how that extension out through the leg, straightening the leg, it's not just straightening though, and hitting back towards the hip socket actually feeds awareness down the down leg. So this is happening on the pranic body, right? Not just the physical body. When you start to realize that an action here results in an action there. So think about some of the core instructions and experiences you have in Trikonasana. So one of them you get when you get into the quote shape of the pose that makes the pose go in more inward, or can, right, is to actually rotate the belly up towards the ceiling. But in this pose, right, you're going to actually take the left side of her body and roll it towards the floor as she extends through the down leg and the up leg. And when she rolls back that way, she's going to find that this awareness better feeds the down leg, because this is the place where it gets lost in translation, is through the abdomen. So you're actually learning how to use your spine and your legs in concert with each other without all the strain of gravity that should be a sensation that you're aiming for and moving towards when you're doing it standing up. So then it's going to go the other way. Same thing again. Remember, we're trying to get you to, and all this is happening without you having to struggle for balance. And when you don't have to struggle for balance, your mind actually feels safe, right? Your mind feels safe. And so conditions of safety have been met, so you can actually sense more. So again, she's stretching up to the heel and the ball of the foot here. If I wanted to amplify the sensation of the standing, I'd put a block by your foot or a sandbag, right? She's stretching up the heel and ball of the foot, but moving the femur bone back towards the hip socket, rolling the whole right side of her body down, but noticing that as she does that, how that fills through the legs and through the arms. This sensation is in the standing version. It's just harder to do because you're fighting gravity. And then come on up, right? So then, Amy, will you just stand up and do Trikonasana? And I just want to point out the similarities again. So this is one of a whole bunch of ways that Supine Ustasana teaches not only Trikonasana, but a standing pose. But my point is, if I can't stand up, right, and I want access to this pose. So again, when I was having her take the right side of her body, if she drops here, right, way too muscular, as she revolves open and extends, remember, this foot is hitting down into the belt, and you're sucking the femur bone back towards the hip socket. This leg is stretching out through the down leg heel, so this femur bone's hitting this way. The coordination of effort between the legs allows the spine to elongate. That is what you need to teach me to have, and then come on up, regardless of what I mean. So our students, and Amy, we very rarely have people that can take their legs wide, right? So their leg might be totally bent. The shape of the pose might change in a whole bunch of ways, but the teaching from inside to out, so what we're trying to get you to do is to adapt the sensations and the experiences. And it makes, when you do that, when you actually do that, then everyone in the room gets to do the pose, right? And so it's one of those things that But in order for you to experience that, would you ever been able to see the connections between the floor without doing the pose? I mean, were you ever introduced to the idea of bridge poses?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
And one of the things is that in Iyengar yoga, because they break all the poses apart, which turns people off, it allows you to see how different parts are in every pose, right? So the ability to break a pose apart into its smaller actions allows you to show bridges to other poses. And that's one of the ways you can start adapting standing poses. Thanks for joining us on this one. Until next time.
Thanks for watching. At MindBody Solutions, we train yoga teachers and healthcare providers from all over the world. If you'd like to learn more, check us out at mindbodysolutions.org.